Football made simple. Become great at your craft by finding ways to make it simple for those around you. This is the Coaching 101 podcast hosted by Find a Way Productions with your co-host, Daniel Chamberlain and Kenny Simpson. This episode is brought to you by Athletic Speed and Movement. At athleticspeedmovement.com, we've taken Del Basquet's 45 years of speed and movement training and put it all in one place just for you. You can get the same training that NFL players have been getting for years, collegiate players have been getting for years, and now high schools across the nation are paying thousands of dollars to bring Del in to install his system, but we've got it online for you. It's time to help your team become faster, not just in the 40, not just their sprint speed, but between the tackles and their cuts while they're chasing down the quarterback. It's time for you to help them become faster everywhere. Jump over to athleticspeedmovement.com. There's an orange button there. Just click it. It says, get the keys to playing faster. You'll get the 3 core movement video from Dell. He's explaining the science behind it, all for just the price of your email. Check it out, athleticspeedmovement.com. What's up, coaches? This is the Coaching 101 podcast. I'm Daniel Chamberlain, here with Kenny Simpson. Coach Simpson, we're recording on Mother's Day, so a special thanks goes out to our wives, who are both mothers, and to all the mothers out there. My wife's super cool and was like, go do your football thing, you know. She knows this is kind of the highlight of my weekend sometimes is getting on and talking ball. So super cool of her to give up part of her special day so we can keep the show going.
Yeah, I mean, the guys that are listening, if you're fortunate enough to be married and then you're super fortunate enough to have your wife want to be invested in your program, that's when magic can really happen, because that's when it just kind of seems to fall into place, is when everybody's pulling the same direction at the house. I think that sometimes as coaches, you know, it can be really difficult if you have a disgruntled better half. And so when coaching can quickly and easily do that. So I think there needs to be some intentionality from the coach, and then also a little bit of give. Hopefully you chose the right person that kind of helps in that world. I know I'm very blessed in that world. And as our kids have come up and now our son is playing for us, you know, she's almost become like the team mom. And so that's been a neat deal. I'm sure that down the road, that's probably coming your direction as well, Daniel. And, you know, you get those ladies that are willing to do stuff like that. You know, like I think in about 30 minutes, my son's invited a bunch of football kids over there doing like a Sunday night Devo. So, of course, she's going to cook for them and make sure that stuff's ready for them. And but you always have this random, hey, by the way, we got 17 kids coming over tonight, so heads up. And so she's always handled that with a lot of grace. So very, very blessed on my end. I know you are on your end. And, of course, we both have moms as well. You know, mine is in town, and she's the loudest supporter of our team. And so that's been really, really neat for me. I'm very blessed in that world.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you, so for those who don't know, I'm sure you've heard or seen on Twitter or whatever else, I'm working on a clinic to help the town of Sulphur. It's called the Sulphur Strong Football Coaches Clinic at sulphurstrong.coachesclinic.com. You can go to that website and you can kind of reserve your seat today. I think the price is around $25, $35. It's not a lot, but we're hoping to gain a lot of support for that. But obviously I've been having to network to set that up, and Jamie Simpson has been recognized multiple times as how does the Kenny Simpson kingdom keep running? And it's, well, Kenny Simpson's the face of it, but we all know that Jamie is the one running things.
Correct.
So
Correct.
She is keeping the wheels on the bus and keeping them moving. So
yeah, that's it. I'm telling you. And that's
the football world knows that you're lucky. And I think we all wish and hope that our wives, and you know, mine has been wonderful as well, dealing with all the medical side and keeping coaches updated on concussion protocols and stuff, like keeping us out of the Stone Age, if you will, because you can go to some pretty big programs and their medical side is pretty old stuff, right? It's not up to date. So, but yes, Miss Jamie Simpson is well known in the coaching community that knows you. So Tell her thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that she does.
She makes it special. Hey, did you before we get moving? Did you all the colors of the sky? Did they make their way to Oklahoma? I know they were all over Arkansas. So
they did. Yes, we got the Northern Lights in northern Oklahoma, northeastern Oklahoma. My wife snagged a couple photos, and that was pretty. It was strange, obviously very, very weird circumstances there, but I mean, I think I saw today there's another giant flare coming, so we may get that yet again this year, which is going to be kind of crazy if it happens twice in a year and it hadn't happened in 20 years.
Right, and we had the eclipse here, so we've kind of had all the different things you can have. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, it's been a wild year for things in the atmosphere, in the galaxy. I don't know what word I'm looking for. Coach, tonight we're going to talk a little bit of trips, formations of all variations, but trips passing concepts and kind of how they fit into offenses, how you're using them, how I plan to use them, and then some of the why, right? We went the nuts and the bolts of why these concepts are even put in. Why aren't we just in too tight, double wing, run the ball every play type stuff? So before we get started, though, do you want to tell us how we can simplify coaching for our staffs and our players? What's up, coaches? I want to talk to you for just a few moments about your program. The longer I'm in this profession, the more I understand that efficiency is truly the name of the game. You're talking offense, defense, doesn't matter, right? Eventually, you're going to come down to checking out your efficiency. So I have to ask you, are you doing everything in your program the most efficient way, right? Are you fundraising the most efficient way? Are you representing your players and your program to the public in the best way? Are you planning to build the facilities the most efficient way? If you answered no to any of those, or really even if you answered yes to all of them, and you haven't contacted Mark Bridges at Ace Sports, you're missing a key step. So look, Mark and his team, they are the go-to group for video board and scoreboard installations for your school. They're not just football either. Mark can help you mock up your newest video board for your that new stadium, or maybe even your old stadium, right? That's where Mark and the guys come in. And we're not just buying a flashy thing, right? Yes, it's nice. It's pretty neat to have that big scoreboard, that big video board, but you're also, you're investing back into that program. You're investing into that newest fundraiser. Sure, you can keep selling your discount cards, your beef jerky, hosting pie auctions, whatever it is that you like to do. But let's just be honest with ourselves, guys. We're not making enough money for those big ticket items. For the big ticket items like turf, an indoor facility, that's where you need a big ticket item fundraiser. That's what Ace Sports is offering you today. Guys, I've talked to Mark several times now, right? And it always comes down to big school, small school. Right? Well, of course, the big schools can afford that new video board, but the small schools really can't. It's just not true anymore, man. Your school isn't too small, and I promise. Okay, 1A, 2A schools, it doesn't matter. Mark and the guys, they're helping them out. Contact Mark today at mark.bridges@acesports.com and let him come give you a quote. Let him show you and your administration the plan. Now, really, it's the cheat code, right? Let him show you the cheat code that is fundraising with Ace Sports video boards. Tell him Daniel sent you.
Coaching 101 podcast is sponsored by Findaway Productions. Findaway Productions also sponsors fbcoachsimpson.com for all your coaching needs, with over 30 coaching materials, books, as well as 50 PowerPoints and videos and smaller materials, and the free magazine headsets. Findaway Productions also sponsors offensivecoordinatoracademy.com, all things offense, and defensivecoordinatoracademy.com, all things defense.
All right, guys, as always, go to those guys that have, that we've put their ads on the show. We trust them. Kenny has them in his program, right? He's using Zach's Procom headsets. That's what's on the sidelines at Southside High School. Ace Sports helped Kenny put that beautiful scoreboard video board up in the end zone. That's become the highlight of the fundraising world. So you can contact Mark for that. Those guys, they got it going on. They've got the good product. We wouldn't steer you wrong on the podcast. We don't want to have anything on here we obviously wouldn't use ourselves. So reach out to those guys and get what you need. Coach, this coach's cap, the sun is out. It's hot and humid already in Oklahoma. So it's time to start thinking about a hat. Tell me about your coach's cap.
Yeah, we've been selling quite a few of them the last week or two, so I can tell guys are getting into spring or summer. So basically, again, I don't want to just rehash it every week, but I'm a big advocate of taking care of your skin, as I've had to have several things cut off of me. So I advocate wearing bucket hats or those big brim hats or whatever you're going to wear. So I came up with a patent that basically took the bucket hat and attached a whistle to the bottom of it. Our staff has been using theirs, so it's been cool to actually see it in action with not just me. But it's a really good way to not forget your whistle and not forget to take care of your skin.
Awesome. And then before we move on, I know that you've recently put out a new book. I think it's a few weeks in the post-release now, but tell me, is it 90 power shotgun formations. Is
That's
that
it.
right?
Yeah, that's it. So it's in that formation family. I've got now 3 of those. So if you want to have 278 formations that are different, I know we're going to talk about trips today, but there are different flavors of trips too. So if you would like one of those books, you can go over to fbcoachsimpson.com, and there's not just the formation, but how we get in the formation, what we do with the formation, what we're looking to do. So it's one thing to be able to run a formation. It's another thing to actually know how to use it as a tool.
Yeah, that's always the thing, right? You can make up a huge playbook with X's and O's all over the place, but if you don't know the why to carry all that stuff, it's just as bad as not teaching kids why we run a play a certain way or certain rules or routes. Or we're going to get a lot of that tonight with trips, I'm sure, but you got to have the why, or otherwise you're just going to be carrying a bunch of stuff that's good for nothing, right? You're just
Right.
calling them at random or whatever. So learning the why is huge, and that's what I've got a couple of those books. I still have to purchase this last edition, but I just really love that it gives you the why. Here's what we want to do with this. So appreciate you putting those out. Those are wonderful resources. Let's jump in here to question 1. Talking trips passing game. So what's so different about trips passing concepts versus our standard 2x2 or whatever else we've been used to running?
Well, I kind of come at it from a defensive standpoint. We were in the spring. Y'all are in the spring. So when you go out there on defense, you think the first formation usually you'll throw up out there on the defense is some kind of 2x2, and that's how you're going to teach your DBs how to cover, or you'll show them man if that's what you're going to play. When you get into trips, there's always this is our trips adjustment, and the defense knows we're going to have 2 or 3 different looks if we're going to see trips pretty often. So one is it tilts the field, it unbalances the field in the passing game. Instead of having 2 guys where they could leave 2 DBs over there or 2 DBs and outside linebacker, now you're kind of forcing them to change the integrity of their defense. They're going to have to dedicate more guys to one side of the field over the other. So the unbalanced portion of it, I think, can't be overstated. Making them kind of decide, are we going to give another defender over there and then potentially leave us a guy short on the backside? Or are we going to try to play as much of our base as we can? And now you have a numerical advantage to the trips. So that's, to me, the main point. There's a couple other ones. A lot of times it'll give you simple, clean reads, whether that's the play side or to the backside, because your backside options, you can a lot of times isolate a guy man to man. So a lot of teams, what they'll do is put their best receiver by himself, and then now they're going to put the other 3 receivers to the other side of the field. And now a defensive coordinator kind of has to make a decision. Are we going to honor the trips and leave this guy one-on-one? Or are we going to try to put 2-on-1, and then now we're going to open up potentially the run game, or maybe we're going to open up the trips screen game or the trips pass game? So it's a lot of different reasons to run trips. I think you're seeing almost every team that runs any version of a pro style or a spread look, or even wing T teams now will run, tight end wing and a receiver over, just to try to force the defense to do what's going on. And I haven't even got to the run game. I think the run game with trips also can be opened up, because now you're going to take teams and they're going to have to move their force player and make decisions with that guy. Do you take your force player in a 3-4 and move him between 2 and 3 in the trips, where now there's a nice alley to run the ball to the trips and you can really put him in conflict? Do you try to roll your DBs down and keep that guy in the box, and now you're 1 down in the passing game? So a lot of really good reasons to run trips. I'd imagine most guys that are listening to this have some version of it, but that's what we're looking for. Like when we get into trips, we're looking for, are they over rotating to the trips? Are they taking box players out of the box? Or are they leaving potentially a really good matchup on the backside? And that's kind of our little checklist when we get into a general version of trips.
Yeah, I really like trips because same thing defensively as a DC. You said this already, but you got to have more than one way to play trips. But if someone uses enough trips that you need that second or third defensive install, then now on the OC side, I'm like, hey, I can make you put in 6 or 7 or 8 coverages, right? Because you're already going to have probably your cover 1. your cover 3. And now you got to have your trips version 1 and 2. And maybe that's not good. So you just can start stacking what the defense has got to do, especially if you have enough concepts in cover 3 to really break what they want to do naturally anyway. Um, and so I think that making coaches put extra stuff in is always stealing time, right? It's why I talk about running gadget plays. It's why people run the stinking swinging gate on the goal line. All that crazy stuff. It's just to steal time. You just take time away from that other coach, and trips is just as big of that as anything else. We know the run game can be dangerous, that backside. I love checking a trips check. Just run speed option to the weak side, right? Do they have enough people to honor everyone? And the answer is probably not, especially in this day and age, because we all want to stay too high, right? And we want to roll that corner down on defense. And so you're very, very quickly outnumbered.
And you think even man zero teams. So like if you want to play man, when I go 2x2, you can just lock it up. It's pretty easy. When you get into trips, especially if you can kind of get them close together, now there's a lot of different rub routes and concepts that can come out of that. Where if you're trying to play man, you got to probably lay your DBs out in different levels. Like one guy's tight, one guy's off. So you're making them work through that. So even a coach that comes and says, well, coach, we don't care what you're in, we're going to play man. That still can give them issues. Are you going to bring the defensive back over to the trips, or are you going to bump out an outside backer? So you have some issues there.
Yep, absolutely. Second part here, and we're just going to jump right into your favorites. So I want to know what your favorite trips passing concepts are, and and then pick one and kind of walk us through it.
Sure. Now, there's a bunch here, and I'll kind of give just a general overview of all of them, and then if you've got one you want to kind of dive through, we'll walk through it. But to me, I mean, your normal trips concepts that have been around for a long time. So probably one of the first ones people put in is some version of like flood or like levels, where you're going to have a guy running a vertical to clear it, some type of deep out route and some type of short out route. And then generally you're going to read, the corner. If he carries the deep vertical, you're trying to throw that 15, 12-yard out route. Then, of course, you got the little shoot route going with it that's kind of high-low in that outside backer. So There's a lot of versions of what I would call levels, or a lot of people just call it flood. You're just flooding a zone, trying to make something happen. You also have snag, which is another way of getting to the same thing. Like you're going to take your inside receiver who's going to run a corner route. That's your high guy. Your outside receiver is going to run essentially like it could be, depending on how you coach it, could be a slant that can convert to a curl. It could just be a curl. And then your number 3 is going to run either a shoot route or a bubble or something to kind of draw. And then depending on how, again, what you want to throw, how you want to coach that up, we usually will read the outside linebacker on that. And we're trying to throw the curl to the swing route. But other guys may read the corner and they can go high-low with it. So it's 2 different flavors, but really you're getting to 3 levels. You have a deep guy, an intermediate guy, and a guy in the flats. So those are, to us, those are 2 that we're pretty much going to carry every year. Then we have a couple other ones that we'll kind of play around with. So wheel's a really good play call out of trips, especially if you're seeing teams that are trying to lock stuff up. So wheel for me just means we're going to have an in breaker. Probably number 1 is going to do some kind of in breaking route. That could be a curl. That could be a post. That could be something to draw the corner. Then we're going to have our number 3 is usually who we'll try to run it with. He'll run the wheel. He's going to the flats and he's up the sideline. Then our number 2, a lot of times, will either go high or low depending on number 1. So if number 1 ran a post, number 2 is going to run a curl. Number 1 ran a curl, number 2 is going to run the post. So basically we're going to get 2 guys going inside, 1 high, 1 low, and have your wheel route off of that. And so something that if we're going to run a lot of trips, and that's also a really good play to do from the backfield or from a slot. You're getting a backfield guy on the wheel. So that's another concept we'll run. And then we've kind of got into the choice world where we're throwing to 1 guy. We're deep choice. You're throwing to generally off of the corner. And we can throw it to, we've got it now where we can tag it, throw it to multiple players and run some switches, like vertical switches, and then read the leverage of the corner. Where if you're going to play kind of a soft corner with us to our trips, we're going to throw that ball, bring whichever guys we're going to bring inside, isolate your corner, and we're just going to read him. You can throw the hitch. If he comes down, we can throw the go route. And so those are big ones we've done. We're playing with short choice this spring. So short choice is basically an in or out option for one of your slot receivers. We're going to clear it. We're going to bring somebody inside to really clear that middle coverage. And then you're going to isolate one of those slots and let him with an in or out option. So like a 5-yard choice concept. I think I put down one other one. You have the drive concept, another really good one. We're kind of taking short choice instead of drive. But to me, the drive concept is where we're going to bring a guy inside. And then we're going to take one of our inside receivers who's going to look like he's working out and then plant his foot in the ground and come right back and drive back inside. You can run flavors of that. It could be like a dig. It could be a in and out. It could be a whatever. But all of those routes basically are designed for trips. Like they're designed to be trips concepts. You could run choice out of twins. For the most part, they really, really, in my opinion, they pop when you stick them with trips.
Yeah, I'm obviously first year going at this offensive side of the ball thing. I'm just every concept I've used, everyone that I've went out and learned and tried to take from other coaches this year and make sure they fit in the system. I want to be reading one guy. So I'm glad that you, as a guy who's been doing this a long time, are doing the same thing, because this is my year to learn how well I can coach quarterbacks, right? And so I'm just going to give that quarterback one guy to read. So that'll be our thing this year. We're going to pick whoever that is pre-snap. We're going to have certain checks to get there. And so that's why I'm excited about trips, is because, like you said earlier, it spreads people out. It makes for an easier read for that quarterback. And so we just want to do anything we can to get the outside backer go in one direction. He's either going to go deep, he's going to go to the flats and leave somebody open. So we're going to kind of what you call a drive or maybe a snag. We want somebody snagging just inside the hash, and then we're going to bring, kind of a hitch escape. So hit the hitch and then work back down the line of scrimmage. And so that way that outside backers, he can't be right. We're going to make him wrong. That's kind of our motto going into this year, is make him wrong. And that's who him is almost every time. Of course, a corner could be there on that hitch, but we expect him to drive outside, because that's what we teach corners to do: drive on the outside of a hitch. Safety over the top. We're gonna have a clear route that goes, so kind of a slot fade look. So that's kind of the concept we're gonna lean on early. And then I really have fallen in love with what you can do running shallow routes. So Lincoln Riley, of all people, I know the people in Oklahoma right now are probably scoffing me because, we're not supposed to like Lincoln Riley anymore. But the guy's an offensive genius. He just does great things, and he's a GT counter fan, which I am too. So he has what he calls like a shallow sting, and he just double posts to one side and runs a tight end across into that void. I want to run that out of trips and flare a back with it to the trips, or have the back release, almost like a wheel, what you were talking about. So now I've got double post clearing. I'm going to get rid of the corner and the safety. Especially, I have a feeling, much like what you get, we're going to get a lot of man coverage after about mid-season. So we're going to run them off and then let that number 3 work to the center and then just pivot back out. And now he's running to an empty area. Should be. If not, then the T should be wide open. So kind of just a rendition of that shallow sting, which he Lincoln Riley runs it out of a 2x2. I want to convert it to a 3x1 look and just see what we can get.
We haven't even talked about mesh. I know neither one of us is going to run mesh, but mesh is a good play out of trips. We don't run it, so I don't spend a lot of time with it, but it takes a different flavor when you're giving it out of trips, especially if you're running it where you're bringing the single all the way across.
Yep. Yeah, and with so many trips, nubs, formations, and you can just do so much stuff nowadays with trips. You can really get a lot of people kind of overload those zones very quick. So those guys in small high school football that just want to run cover 3 because all of my eyes are in the backfield to stop the run, that's great. But I'm about to put 5 receivers over here with your corner, a safety, and an outside backer, and we're going to see who can kind of take care of their zone when there's 2 or 3 people flooding it. So
Mhm.
you talked about flood route already, and I don't know for sure, but I'm sure that's where I assume that's where the name flood came from. Is
Flood the zone.
we're gonna flood your zones, right? So now I'm doing it with 5, and you still have to worry about the run to the backside. So lots of fun stuff can be done out of that, and I'm glad you kind of told us some of your favorite concepts, because I'm gonna go back and draw them all up and try to add them, and see where we can add that to the package if it fits. We don't want to go crazy. Part 3 here. So, what are the ways to introduce our trips formations to our package? So if we're not generally a trips team, a lot of people have followed you in this world of the tight end wing twins away. Lots of people are still just running 2x2, maybe some one back pro type stuff. So how can we kind of introduce the trips into what we're already doing?
Yeah, when you're speaking my language now, that's where a lot of those formation books kind of come from. So, for me, it's not just about running these trips passes. Like anybody can run snag, anybody can run flood, anybody. Those are common plays. We didn't come up with those. You didn't, I didn't. They've been around forever. So what makes this? What makes it work? Well, I think it's the way you can get 2 trips in multiple ways, so you can pick the coverage you like. So my dog apparently agrees. So
That's right.
basically, what we're going to do is we're going to try to get the trips in a lot of flavors. So you have your standard trips. When I'd say the standard, I mean your number 1 is on the numbers, number 2 is usually splitting the hash numbers, number 3 is usually on the hash. I'd call that standard trips. We would teach our concept. We'll use snag as our example here. So we would tell our kids, if we're running snag, number 1 is going to run a curl or a slant that can convert to a curl. Number 2 is going to run a corner, and number 3 is going to run a shoot route, okay, or a bubble, however you want to coach that up. So that's the route. So out of normal trips, we're going to be able to do that. Okay, now, guys, we're going to go ahead and run the same thing, but we're going to line up in 2x2, and we're going to flare our back. So now we're in basically empty, but we've taught the same concept. So the back knows if I flare out there, I'm the bubble. I become the bubble or the shoot. 1 and 2 don't change anything. Okay, so that's one other way you can get into trips. You can decide we're going to bunch our trips together like a tight bunch, kind of like those. That's one of my favorite formations, is that condensed to the formation,
Yeah.
tight triangle looking shape of trips. And now we're going to run the same concept. Number 1 is going to run the curl. Number 2 is going to run the corner. Number 3 is going to run the shoot or bubble. It's the same play for you. It's the same play for your kids. But for a defense, condensed trips can cause different issues. Like, am I getting in that set to run it? Am I getting in that set because you're playing man, and now I can make your guys condense down with me and kind of get rub action going on? That's a different looking set, but for our quarterback and our players, it's the same play and the same read. If we teach, get to these landmarks with our receivers. Another flavor of trips you can get to would be like a wide bunch. It's the same thing, but now we're going to put them out wide, and we're going to get them all squeezed together so that we're getting all these natural rubs. The route does not change. Number 1 has the curl. Number 2 has the corner. Number 3 has the shoot or the bubble. We're just doing it from a bunched up look. And so our kids kind of learn that doesn't change anything. Then we can go like what I call like wide splits. Like, I'm a big fan of putting trips into the field and take number 1 all the way up there to the numbers. Take number 3 and condense him almost like a wing, and put number 2 right in the middle. And there's a ton of space out there now that you're forcing a defensive team to decide, how are you going to play that? Are you going to take your coverage guy all the way out there with number 2 and really, really lighten that box? Are you going to try to apex it and kind of keep him in the middle? Well, now, number 1 and 2 got a lot of room out there, And a lot of times for us, number 2 is generally one of our better players. Our slot receiver is one of our best guys. So you're going to leave that guy open, and so that set's really good. And the same concept would work. Now, number one just needs to know I got to bring that curl way inside because I'm super wide. Number two,
Right.
still run the corner. Number three, still run the shoot. We may roll out into that thing because it's out there to the field. But it's the
Right.
same concept for our kids. We're just presenting a different problem for you as a defensive coach. We're giving you a bunch trips. We've given you a normal trips. We've given you a tight squeeze trips, and now we've given you a super wide trips. We're running the same stuff. And then we're going to come back and we're going to motion to it. So we're going to send a receiver from the right side of the field to the left side of the field and go from a 2x2 into a 3x1. That's not a big deal. However, if you're playing some version of man, that's a really big deal because now you've got a lot of decisions you have to make. Are you going to run across the field with my guy, or are you going to try to pass it off? If you pass it off, is that changing the integrity of your run defense? So there's some issues there. And now our motion guy just runs the shoot, what he was going to run anyway. Number two runs the corner. Number one runs the curl. Nothing changed.
Right.
We just motioned over to it and made you make a hard decision. You can do it from a tray set. So I don't know exactly what everybody call it. I call a tray set 2 receivers and a tight end, like a tight end and then 2 receivers outside of him. How are you lining up to that? Because are you telling your outside linebacker to get on the tight end to defend the run? Or are you trying to tell him to apex and get wide for the pass? So there's issues there whether we run it or throw it. That's a really, in my opinion, one of the hardest sets to line up to in all of football is the tray set. It really messes with 3-4 and 4-2-5 guys' rules because you have a tight end and twins outside of the tight end can be tough. But for us, we're going to run the same concept. So now the tight end just runs the shoot route. Number 2 runs the corner. Number 1 runs the curl. Changed nothing, but it may change how you view it. You may have a rule where you man up the tight end. So you're going to man up the tight end running a shoot route and bring a DB up. So now our other stuff may come open. So there's just issues because of the formation. Or you could run trips and then flare your back to the right. So trips left, flare your back to the right. Now you're in an empty look. So trips is hard. Trips empty is almost a completely different call for the defense. You may get a 100% different coverage in a 3x1 versus a 3x2. Okay? And then, of course, you can get into my favorite set that we run, tight end wing receiver. So now how are you handling that? Are you going to bring your guy in really, really tight? Because now if I run any kind of shoot route, there's nothing out there. So we can throw the shoot route all day long. But for us, we're going to teach the concept, and then we're going to run it from all of these formations. And that's just one concept. So you can also go into all the run game and your other trips concepts. And those are just a few off the top of my head versions of trips.
Yeah, we can't not talk about how everything we're trying to do with the pass game tonight just opens up the run game or is accentuated by the run game. You talk about that tight end wing with a wide receiver out wide, right? There's so many gaps inside. If you're a 3-front team, you have to put an outside backer on the line. Now your safety's coming down, trying to apex. If you're a 4-front team, your defensive end is on top of the tight end, but I still have 2 gaps outside of him. Mm-hmm. You still got to bring that outside back. Like there's so many things on defense you have to worry about when you start getting these extra gaps, and especially if somebody can truly go out and sling the ball around or run it. I'm a huge proponent of quarterback run game. So I think empty is a whole separate animal. Like you said, as a DC, I always carried a few trips checks and like one empty check because there's only so much stuff they can do out of empty as well, right? You kind of, as an offense, there's only so many zones to fill with players. So if you just want to go empty, I in my DC heart of hearts, I know that there's only so many places those wide receivers can go. Now, if I can just get my guys to be there too is a different question. But
we didn't even talk about the screen. We didn't even talk about screen game out of trips. We probably could have spent 10, 15 minutes just talking about screen to trips. The easiest RP in the world is line up 3 guys, and if they line up 2, throw it out there. And if they line up 3, run it.
And you can do that with talking screen game. We can kind of get into that anyway. You've got your now screen. You can let number one kind of just take a step and catch it. You can tunnel it and bring him inside, right? Depending on where they want to put that outside backer. Is he outside of your number three or is he inside of your number three? You can bubble number three. You can let number two do any of those because you've still got a man there for the most dangerous threat, no matter which direction you're going. So, trips can get very dangerous very quickly if you're willing to just kind of work with it, right? If you are going to line up and just run four verts every time, still a threat. That number three still has got to cross the field to the backside hash, and they may or may not have a safety waiting on him there, but you still get pretty limited pretty quick on what you can do. Or if you'll just kind of let your kids have fun, like you said, Kenny, introduce a concept and make it work in all those different formations. I feel like you can do a lot of damage that way with your 3x1 stuff.
That's how we do 7-on-7. You know, like guys ask me, hey, what are you doing 7-on-7? Because we don't have like a huge passing. That's what we do. We take one play and we run the whole game that one play from a bunch of formations. And then the next game, we do a different play and we run that play from a bunch of different formations. And then that's kind of how we handle stuff. That's how we get it taught to our kids and the point driven home. We don't have to change the play. We're just going to change the way we're giving the play.
Yep. I've been real big this year on teaching guys, we run to zones. We don't necessarily, I don't care if your route's super crisp. This isn't the NFL. You don't have to beat some, all pro corner. You just got to get where the quarterback can see open grass and throw you the ball. So run to zones. And I think that's helped with installing these concepts. Mainly it's helped with putting people in different formations and they still know I've got to get to that zone. So if it was a curl, I'm supposed to run a curl, but I put you way inside tight, you've got to get back out there, right? If it was a hitch, now it turns into a shoot. It just kind of whatever. If you had a seam ball, running up the hash, but I put you on the wrong side of the field, now I've got to cross to get over there to get back to that open zone. So we've really opened up the kids' minds and let them learn more by just essentially teaching less. Give them zones to run to on any given concept, and then put them wherever on the field you want. You put them all 5, I guess, on the left sideline, all standing stacked, and they just run to those zones, and the quarterback knows where to read. So yeah, man, that's trips can be a beast very quickly. Can get out of control for defenses, especially when you start talking about run game as well. I think it just does so many crazy things to your. You called it the integrity of their run game. I really like what you talk about going from 2x2 motioning to 3x1. We faced that in a game a couple of years ago. A team lined up and did that in a wildcat package. So they already had a stud back there to catch the ball and run, and then they would motion one dude across, and we were going with at that time. So we would cross the field. Well, that was our force player, right? So when your backside safety, your weak side safety in a 4-2-5, if he goes with a receiver, you don't have a force anymore. And so and then they just ran GT counter back to where he just came from. And it took us about 3 or 4 plays for me to get something drawn up and send it down to the sideline. And then we were okay. We just had to fill those gaps. So you can get a very big advantage, maybe not for a long time because that DC gets paid too, right? He's going to solve what you're doing. But if you've got a counter off of that, you just kind of turn the page and go to the next thing. You can put up a lot of stress on that defense pretty quick. Well, shorter episode tonight. We've checked all those boxes pretty quickly. Trips passing game, a lot to get into. Highly recommend you get into either the gun tee system. I mean, coaches got some stuff there. Reach out to any of the guys that have been on the show that are running trip stuff. What not to do as a coach. Everybody's favorite portion here. So, Coach Simpson, why don't you give us our lesson for the evening?
Sure. Yeah. So today's we've hammered it home. So I hope it's kind of come home. But don't think you've got to run 1,000 or even 100 concepts. Like I think the way you make your concepts work is you run a lot of formations. And it's not a sales pitch here, but there are a lot of good programs you can get into where you can find formations and verbiage to do different things. And so I'm offering several of those. Daniel mentioned at the beginning of the podcast where you can go get our formation books. That's over at fbcoachsimpson.com. There are other resources. Don't feel like you got to go get mine. You can go get whoever's. But the idea is to run, and I'm going to say it, I know my book's behind me somewhere, to run one play multiple ways or one play many ways. And so to me, that's the same thing with a formation. Like we put formations into buckets of families. Tonight we've talked about trips. There are a lot of trips and cousins of trips that we mentioned here about 5 minutes ago. Bunch trips, trips with a tight end, trips with an H-back, trips wide. There's a lot of versions of trips. You need to think about your formations in that same world of these are a family grouping. So trips tonight, and these are the trips formations that we like because it matches our personnel, or these are the trips versions that we like because the defense really struggles with whatever. And that allows you in the middle of a game to say, we really want to run this trips concept. The most favorable version of trips we've had all night has been X, whatever that is. But don't think you've got to have a bunch of concepts, a new play you got to go to. Is can you present it a different way? Can you present it, the play a different way, or can you present even the formation with a slightly different way to do it? So don't think that all trips is created equal. Don't think that all plays are created equal. To me, it's how good can you teach the concept, and then how can you dress it up?
Yeah, absolutely. One last time, guys, before we get out of here, we'll mention our sponsors. We've got Ace Sports. Reach out to Mark. His all of his contact info is in that ad, so you can jump back and grab it. It is the cheat code for fundraising. It's ridiculous when you start seeing how much people are in the black after paying off their board, right? I talked to Ryan, which is the Oklahoma rep for Ace Sports, and he essentially told me there's very, very few teams ever have to make a payment out of pocket. You don't make a payment for 12 months, and one out of like a lot actually ever have to make that payment because they're going to hold your hand. They're going to help you get back into the black, and then you can just be selling and making that ad revenue. So reach out to Mark or Ryan over at Ace Sports. And then, of course, Procom. Zach Welchman is the guy. That's his other duty besides coaching. He's a football coach just like you and I, right? And it's he's found a product that was good enough that he was like, hey, I'm going to make this to a second career.
Mm-hmm.
So jump over to procomwelchman.com and see what Zach can do for you today. Coach, social media here. You can find me at Coach Chambo OK on Twitter /X. Also, email me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. Chamberlainfootballconsulting.com is alive and popping. I'm still working out the details of like making it a super functional website. I just don't have, I'm not all there when it comes to just making websites. So, and I also don't just have a ton of product to sell to go hire someone to design it. So I'm going to struggle through, and you guys get to watch me evolve that website from the beginning. So you can jump over there and see me today. Last little thing I'll pitch here is the Sulfur Strong. That's SULPHUR, sulfurstrong.coachesclinic.com. Get in there, get a ticket, be ready for that clinic. It's going to be 17 through 20 June. Each of those evenings will have 4 or 5 clinics. We've got some big names. I've had a lot of fun getting to network with those coaches. So I hope you guys will come over and listen to them speak and make you a better coach. And it's all for a good cause.
Yeah, guys, I'd echo what Daniel said. I mean, anytime you can help people, it's a good thing to do. And so go over there, and if you don't listen to some old coach talk, we'll give $20. I mean, if it can help somebody, then that's always good. My social media is FB Coach Simpson, so all things FB Coach Simpson, at FB Coach Simpson on Twitter, fbcoachsimpson.com for my website. Again, don't forget to check out headsets over there. Daniel's got a lot of good stuff going. We've got 4 issues this year, and we've got 3 other years, all free, all done by coaches. It's over at fbcoachsimpson.com/headsets. And again, Daniel, the secret sauce to that is Jamie. You learn that. She's really the brains behind that, but she does a great job with it. And our coaches that contribute do a really good job with it. And then my email is fbcoachsimpson@gmail.com. Daniel always says, if you want to come be a guest on the show, issues or episodes you want us to talk about, we're always looking to try to do something to help people. That's why we do this. So if there's something you think we could do that you'd love to hear, let us know.
Absolutely. I want to thank you for being a listener of the Coaching 101 podcast. We'll hope you join us next week as we continue to make the complex more simple. Please consider subscribing to the show so you always know when the new episodes are out. We'll leave you with this. It's hard to beat someone who never gives up. No matter the situation, find a way.